Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all, coming at you from the Rookery Pub on Clapham Common. Look who's back, Pato's in the building, Christopher Hamill. How are we, gents? We all good?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm hungover, I've got the hat on, so I'm trying to feel comfy. I've ripped my jeans on the way over here. I've not had a great morning. I'm not going to lie.
I've not had a great week. Couldn't come out last night on the FD Social because I've been ill. Exiting a Lemsip-induced haze right now, though. So, all good. This Sunday Vibes going to bring me back to life.
Yes, let's do it. Okay, well, loads of people obviously on Twitter were sending in their questions for us, and 99% of them were Newcastle related, unsurprisingly. Obviously taken over this week. We've picked Maddie Panjwani's tweet, terrible pronunciation, and they've said, what do you think about the proposed Newcastle takeover? It's no longer proposed. It has indeed happened, which is reportedly close to being completed. It has been completed. What do we think?
Yeah, well, we've got a two-pronged main question, haven't we?
Yeah.
Because there's also a question asking us how to rebuild Newcastle, and we'll get onto that in a minute because people did want to know our thoughts in general about the takeover. And of course, Mike Ashley's 14-year tenure over, and he sold the club for what, 300 million?
Yeah.
I think he purchased it for around 130. His net spend over those 14 years was around 9.2 mil, so he should leave with a bit of change in his pocket. But Newcastle fans can hope again, right?
Yeah.
Great for their fan base, but the larger point I guess we have to address right now is, like, are they not just jumping out of the frying pan into the fire with Saudi owners? Of course, there's been a huge backlash to this. People like Amnesty International, very reputable organisations, saying that, you know, how can people with that sort of moral standing be involved in football, or people, you know, who have of course, been accused of, you know, humanitarian issues. Is this not just a case of sports washing, etc.? And those issues shouldn't be brushed under the carpet. Like we should talk about them a little bit. But Newcastle fans are kind of between a rock and a hard place now, I guess, aren't they? Because there is this celebratory environment coming from St James's Park. And you kind of think, okay, is it their fault that they're being taken over by this particular pie? Yeah. Of course, it is a consortium. I think 80% of the shares are going to the PIF, which is, of course, like the sovereign fund of Saudi Arabia. That's where people are like, okay, is it not effectively owned by the state as a result?
And the Premier League have apparently had assurances that it's not.
This is what I was about to say. Like, if the Premier League's fit and proper test doesn't account for, you know, things like morality, so it's not Newcastle fans' fault, and they shouldn't feel like they can't celebrate. But should the test moving forward be more stringent? That is probably what it will boil down to, in my opinion. Like, people will say after this, will the Premier League have to revisit those particular set-off criteria? Because at the moment it's all like to do with insolvency, bankruptcy, being like the director of a company that have gone bankrupt, etc. So everything has been done above board. So we might not like the result, but the process has been followed, and I suppose everyone's kind of done the due diligence, and we are where we are right now.
Yeah. Thoughts, Pato, on the takeover?
I don't really think it can be above board. Like, if the conclusion is that, like, money belonging to the Saudi royal family is separate from the Saudi royal family, like, I think that's a ludicrous conclusion. When it comes to Newcastle fans, I know what you're saying. Like, it is a slightly difficult situation for them. But I kind of think with Newcastle fans, my take is this: like, I think it's perfectly fine for you to enjoy your club winning. If this means your club starts winning more, you're allowed to enjoy those wins. That's absolutely fine. But there are a couple of things that I don't want to happen. Firstly, what's starting already to happen, which is like what sports washing is, which is people essentially caping up for, like, the Saudi royal family, and with support from PSG fans and Man City fans, because they get rolled into this fight as well. And essentially saying, oh, well, all owners are corrupt. Like, there's you know, kind
like
of dirty money.
Too far gone.
Yeah, there's dirty money on all sides, so therefore it doesn't matter. That's not true at all. And also, what I don't want to happen is that if Newcastle start winning and start being, you know, like a great side again, that people see that as somehow like redeeming the terrible qualities of their owners. You know, that they're just like, well, look, they're great owners because, like, look, we've been winning all this stuff. Like, those two things are not related. So if I were a Newcastle fan, my attitude would basically be like, support the club, glad the club are winning, but I will protest against the owners. So I think for Newcastle fans, that would be the line that I'd take. But I also think there's a responsibility on the part of other fans. Because I think sometimes with these things, the same way as like with players getting arrested, fans of rival clubs use it as a way of like insulting those clubs, as in they like treat sexism or racism or like bad owners as if these are like opportunities to get one over on rivals. Like that's not true at all. Like we should all be in those fights together. Like it shouldn't be like, oh look, your club's owned by somebody like who is, you know, linked with any number of like horrific crimes against humanity. Because I don't know. I just don't think it should be a partisan thing. I think that football fans should sort of stand united against all this stuff.
It's an awkward one for Newcastle fans. I really agree, because they are kind of stuck in the middle, aren't they? They're coming off the back of a very bad ownership, and you could see the celebrations wild outside St James's Park. I'm sure we'll be able to dig out a couple of clips of that, but they were really going for it. And
yeah, don't dress up as Mohammed bin Salman.
And there was a lot of fans kind of saying we've got our club back and stuff, and it feels on that sort of like awkward territory, doesn't it? But you know they are going to get a bunch of money pumped into them. I'm sure St James's Park is going to get a huge redevelopment around the area. The training ground's going to get a huge redevelopment. So should we move on to the football, or do we want to discuss a little bit more about the ownership?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because like part of why people at Newcastle are so elated that they've taken over is because they feel like they are going to rejuvenate these areas and breathe new life into the city, which is a pretty damning indictment of our government that they're not the ones that are being like held to account to do that in the north. It has to be these billionaire football owners that, like Manchester City's owners, who redeveloped that whole area and created new job opportunities and so on and so forth. Like, yeah, people in Newcastle just want more opportunity, I guess. But then the cost of it, yeah, we've discussed before. So it's tough. It's tough, and we probably need a little bit more thinking time on it to kind of really articulate a good answer. But we'll move on to the football, because people, like last year, we created an XI, didn't we, of like a potential takeover 11. Like there is a certain novelty around this issue.
Haaland and Mbappe, Neymar up top.
We've already explored it before, but now it's happened. I suppose we can be a little bit more realistic and maybe try and like second guess what we think they're going to do in the coming months.
Yeah.
And then like supplement that with what we think they should do.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's going to be a slow process. Like I've seen a lot of people talking about Newcastle going to be flying, they're going to be up there, spending loads of money. I think the people on the sporting side are going to be smart enough to know this is going to be a slow process. It's going to take 3 or 4 years. I think they've got large redevelopments to do at the training ground, large redevelopments to do at the stadium. They've got a huge sporting overhaul in the boardroom to do. Probably a managerial overhaul, I think it's fair to say. Steve Bruce, those quotes, we're shooting this on a Friday in the Telegraph last night, where he was talking about, I don't know whether I'm going to be the manager. Yeah. Seems pretty damning.
Very rarely do deals of this size happen without them having their own guy, right?
So should we talk about maybe manager and players that we think they should bring in, who they actually will predict?
Who was it that asked us to do the rebuild? Shout them
only _1_ Chad.
Right, okay. Thanks, Chad.
So, shout out Chad, Frat Chad. But he wants us to talk about it. So, should we start with the manager? Do we want to start with the manager?
Okay, I have put a short list of some managers down that are either like available or people that maybe I thought were wise to pursue. But maybe let's start with like who is out of contract? Who could they just feasibly go and pick up right now that we think would be a decent candidate, if at all? Because like Valverde's still about. Kike Setien, I mean, doesn't have a glowing reputation after that stint at Barca, does he?
Where's Jardim these days? Jardim is probably knocking about.
I think he might be in Asia.
I thought he was in the Middle East at one stage, but he's a good manager. Like he's pretty flexible.
I think whoever comes in needs to absolutely assure safety this season. I do not think they want to be spending a season in the Championship when they could be rebuilding and spending lots of money. So the person that comes in maybe the short term might not be the guy for the long term. So, like, Leo Jardim might be an amazing choice in the long term and might be able to regenerate, and, you know, Ralph Rangnick might be an amazing choice in the long term, but I think they should think about short-termism this season. Maybe a Chris Wilder wouldn't be the worst option.
But that's why I think Jardim would be good, because, like, Jardim isn't, like, an ideologue. He isn't like Setien, who's going to be, like, there's only one guy in this entire team who can pass a ball, and it's John Joe Shelby. Like, Jardim is going to essentially like give you an evolved 4-4-2 probably. Like, I think you want a manager who, because there's also only so much you can do in January as well. So you want somebody who's going to come in and look at this squad and think, Jesus, like this is limited and it's quite a defensive squad. How can I get the most out of the few attackers I've got? And maybe they can add one attacker or two in January, and that might be enough.
If this was last year, like Marcelo would have been great as well. Someone like that. Marcelino, sorry. Not the left back at Real Madrid. Mark Hughes, get him in. No, I
copy
think
the exact format that Man City did, man for man.
Allardyce would keep them up, you know, if they got Allardyce.
Get Hughes, then get Mancini.
Mancini would be great. But I'd love that. Actually.
So do we think they're going to like stick with Bruce for a little bit, maybe give him like a run of 3 or 4 more games? Because obviously he's winless in 7 at the start of the season, they're going to want to. They're getting to the point now where they're going to have to spend a decent amount in January to safeguard their investment, right? Because they lose all that soft power that we were talking about before if their asset isn't a Premier League club. So do we think they're going to go balls to the walls for a big name to start with? Because of course Conte has been banded around.
There's no chances there. I mean, if we're being realistic, there's just absolutely no chance Conte takes over Newcastle.
Conte living in Newcastle.
Like, I think it's a safe assurance to say Steve Bruce goes. Like, if I was picking somebody from a sporting perspective, I think Rangnick is the perfect guy to overhaul Newcastle from behind the scenes, on sporting level, recruitment level, maybe even tactically, and put a really clear philosophy through the club. I think Rangnick would be an amazing appointment. However, I don't think they'll go for someone like Ralph Rangnick and try and get him out of Moscow. I think it's more likely. I think they'll end up going for somebody like Frank Lampard, who is a big enough name to make a statement, like across the world. Frank Lampard becomes Newcastle manager. It's a big PR name. Yeah. It's a big name across America, and could probably muddle them through to safety. Might improve them fairly quickly, and then they'll look to appoint somebody long term when that's over. I think Frank Lampard is the name that they're probably identifying. It's not going to be a Zidane. Like, I've heard people talking about Zidane.
Well, Eddie Howe was actually linked with Newcastle prior, and I think he's infinitely more qualified than a Frank Lampard.
I agree.
And of course, he kept Bournemouth.
Is he a big enough name though
in the league for 5 seasons? Well,
is he a better manager than Frank Lampard? I'm not actually convinced.
I would say so.
I think Frank plays more modern football.
I'd be pretty
You could imagine like bringing Frank in and you kind of start a slightly more attacking, pressing style, and then you evolve the squad towards someone like a Rangnick. You bring in Eddie Howe. I literally don't know what Eddie Howe is good at. Like his sides weren't great in attack. They were horrible.
He does have experience though in the lower portion of the league at battling relegation season on season, whereas Frank.
But does he guarantee safety? Like if you just want to guarantee safety this season. I genuinely think like Allardyce is safer hands than Howe.
But to guarantee safety,
I'd rather Wilder than Howe.
We have to match existing talent to the manager, right? Because Eddie Howe could come in, and I think he's put together some pretty competent attacks before. And of course, he led Bournemouth to 9th in one of those 5 seasons that they're in the Premier League. So I would say he's still more qualified than Lampard. Like I've not seen Lampard bar Derby, and my time of him at Derby is still pretty hazy. Like use inferior players to come up with competent results. So I hear what you're saying with Allardyce. What a juxtaposition that would be. 500 billion the PIF's worth. Allardyce.
It's never going to be Allardyce. It can't be Allardyce. It's not.
No, I'm not saying it should be. I'm just saying that like if all you're thinking about is safety this season, Howe I think it'd be a horrible appointment. Lampard a bad appointment also. Like I'd be much more inclined to go for someone like Allardyce if I was like, we just have to stay up this season. But I think like probably Chris Wilder would be like a slightly more forward-thinking version of all of these guys, right? Like he's a bit more flexible. He's intelligent.
I think
he
Wilder
might even be a great manager. I don't know how good he is.
I think Wilder.
I feel like there's a Venn diagram here between like Howe, Allardyce, Lampard, and Wilder is probably in the middle.
So are we? So is this our prediction? Who we think should be put in charge? We're saying Wilder.
Oh right, okay. Should we do like a 2-pronged for each section then? Like who we think and who we.
So who we think? I still think it should be Rangnick. Like perfect.
But look at that squad. Like I think my thing with Rangnick is I'd probably hire Rangnick as manager and say like at the end of the season or the end of the season after that you'll become solely director of football.
Love that idea.
And then we'll bring in a manager.
Fantastic idea.
But you look at this squad now though. Do you think Rangnick will be able to?
He's had experience keeping clubs up, and he's had experience getting clubs promoted in the Bundesliga. It's not like he's just managed like solid teams. Let's not forget that Schalke team he put together. But do you not got to a Champions League semi-final?
But do you not think that the talent in the Bundesliga generally, overall, is more aligned to the kind of football Rangnick wants to play than this current Newcastle
probably.
team.
That's my fear and reservation. Like, he really isn't like the most practical guy. He plays like a hellbent sort of pressing system.
But there are 3 teams worse in the league squad-wise than Newcastle.
True. That is true.
There are 3 teams, like Norwich's squad is worse than Newcastle's. Watford's squad is worse than Newcastle's.
But Newcastle have just got like a bunch of guys who are good at getting in the way of stuff, and I don't think like that is simpatico with Rangnick's style. I would be inclined to go with someone more defensively minded to start with.
I like the idea of him managing.
Oh, mate, he should be director of football.
Yeah,
like,
amazing.
And work on the vision in 3 to 5 years' time, and just get set to work on coming up with a short list of 50 people to buy in the next 18 months.
And also, if we're talking about these transfers, we're going to go on to talk about transfers. If we're assuming that maybe they overpay a little bit to get like 2 of these guys in January, then Rangnick plus like 2 hard-working pressers in the middle of the field might be enough.
Willock could be a good presser for him. Almiron would be a good presser for him.
Yeah, Willock.
Sam Maximan and Wilson's actually not a terrible presser from the front.
Point.
Like they do have some players that will be on the front foot. Like I could see Ryan Fraser being pretty good.
But
and the Longstaff. The only thing that like both of those guys popped in their numbers. The idea is pressing.
Yeah, but they play a back 5 because of the lack of midfielders, don't they? Really?
Yes.
But also because of the
defensive solidity that Rafa gave them, but
also because of the lack of a cohesive midfield system, I think, as well.
So I mean,
yes,
like Rangnick had good ball players at Leipzig, like a Campbell or a Forsberg. I don't know if that translates with just John Joe Shelby.
You're hoping that they can bring players in January that might fit that vision a bit more. Maybe.
Would we say that? Like, I think we agree that Rangnick's like would be like
number 1
up there, but I don't know. The more practical decision is Chris Wilder, Allardyce.
I'm saying Rangnick. He's saying Wilder, and then we think they'll actually appoint Lampard. Who knows? Should we move on to players?
I think we can move on.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Should we do players we would definitely keep first?
Oh my god.
Because I mean, like Sam Maximan got to keep hold of.
Be my guest. Come
Wilson got to keep hold of. They're definitely going to keep hold of Willock, seeing as they've done their load on him. Dubravka's probably going to get kept, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a fine Premier League goalkeeper.
But that's almost it.
I would say there's like 5 or 6 that I would keep. That I'd want to. I don't know.
You wouldn't mind keeping a bunch of their centre backs, but you similarly would sell.
Lewis, left back.
Oh yeah, you've only just bought him as well.
Bought him a season ago, didn't you? But overall, there's room for improvement, isn't there, in that squad? Quite heavily.
What have we deduced from that? Like, we need like at least 3 or 4 players in January. Then maybe like if it's Operation Stay Up still at that point,
maybe a whole new spine.
But I would probably prioritise like midfielders over centre backs, and I would certainly think, you know what, in Wilson, like we've got enough striker, so like I would kind of want guys. I'd basically want to sort out that midfield.
Lascelles, Clark, Fernandes. In a back 5, all very good at putting the bodies on the line. Yeah, they've got one guy that can pass it to a Premier League standard, and that's John Joe Shelby. And I tweeted yesterday, that's not me being harsh. He was literally the only player who averaged above 33 passes in the Premier League per night last term for Newcastle. Ooh, yeah. And I know that's down to passes. I know that's down to system, but like Edison would probably average 40, 45 in a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. Maybe don't target centre backs, but I do think the centre back area needs upgrading.
Yes,
because they are. The names that I've kind of brought to the table aren't for January signings either. For the next summer.
Okay, interesting. Should we do January and the next summer then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they are kind of two.
Because they are going to bring players in January,
coin,
definitely.
Yeah.
And the players they're being linked with, you know, they probably are going to go for a Robinho signing, aren't they? Like City did, a player that comes in and everybody's like.
Is that true? Like, do people do that when they take over now? Like, firstly, we don't actually know what this takeover looks like, because it's not like clubs haven't been bought by like super wealthy people who have then like not given it before. Like, look at like Malaga. Like Malaga, it was basically bought as an attempt to kind of like get involved in like Andalusian real estate, and that all went up really quickly. Like, so I mean, I don't know. I think you
can't see Coutinho happening.
I mean, if they got Coutinho, that'd actually be pretty sick. Like, but I mean, I wouldn't do it. But like, it would be kind of fun to watch as a non-Newcastle fan. I don't know. If you want to go out and spend a ton of money on this team, you should spend it at attacking mid or just centre mid. Those are definitely the places, right? So if they go out and they're like, right, okay, we're going to spend somebody. It's not so much the fee, probably, as the wages they're going to have to spend to convince someone to go. But if they go out and say, right, we're going to try and get like Chouameni or someone like that, like an outstanding young star, I'm all for that. Like, that sounds great.
All right, so let's bring some names
go
to the table.
Go and get Aouar.
So
should we start at the back and then work our way forward, or
for sure? And I also think like what makes this a little bit more difficult is cross-referencing it between January and the long term, right? Because I think our answers would differ vastly based on each scenario. Because January, I can see it being like, holy, Callum Wilson's still injured. Oh my God, we need a 10-goal striker to stay in the league at that point, right? So that's when they might go and get like, I don't know, attacking reinforcements like Coutinho or another striker. But yeah, I would. In January, like I think that the unholy alliance of the Super League clubs, the people left in the Super League, like Juve, Real Madrid, Barca, are going to be licking their lips at potentially offloading some of their to Newcastle. But there's value there for Newcastle. So I want to ask you two, like, who would you buy in those teams that's on the like peripheries? Because Jovic might be a possibility. Like Aaron Ramsey has had like 100 minutes in Serie A this season.
Don't do that.
At PSG, like Leandro Paredes is just not getting a game because Marco Verratti is now fit. Like, do you make a statement signing like that in January and then sign a bunch of youngsters? Isco?
Oh, no, I don't know. I wouldn't be panicking in January. I'd be keeping it really simple.
No, but I think they will.
I don't think they will.
Really? I think it depends where they are. I think it depends where they are.
But 0 wins in 7. I know it's early doors.
No, I don't see them panicking and bringing in too many of those type of players. I think they might try and identify them next summer and say, okay, if they are still like Luka, Jovic, what's he going to be doing next summer? Nobody really knows because he can't.
You can loan him in January.
Yeah, potentially. Like I think that's more the art they'll go down. I don't think they'll be paying a lot of fees in January.
I don't know. I can see a panic-stricken January. If they like,
it depends who's in charge though. If we're assuming Rangnick's, I'm assuming now Rangnick's in charge. Okay. Rangnick's, he's been offered the job. He's jumped at it. Like he's moved to Newcastle.
Yeah.
And like I say to him in January, I'm like, right, Coutinho, Martin Braithwaite, and he's told me to f off. So like, I think at most we're looking at like loans for guys like Jovic. Jovic went out on loan last January. Could see that happening again.
Dejan Kulusevski on loan.
That would be amazing. Can you imagine Sam Maximan one way and Kulusevski on the other?
Bernardeschi.
Won't happen.
I think if we're being realistic, like,
but like Sarabia, someone like that'd be right.
He's gone to Sporting, I think. Sarabia.
Really, permanently.
CP, on loan.
I think at centre back, I'm going to throw a name out here that next summer I think would be a great target for them is James Tarkowski. I think James Tarkowski, he's out of contract to be a free transfer. Okay. Obviously, clubs like Everton and that are going to be looking at him. Villa, West Ham, I'm sure are going to be
Leicester
looking at
him.
Leicester have been interested as well. I think if you can go out there and compete with that level of side initially first summer, that's sort of the realms that Newcastle need to be aiming at and pay him more wages than they're going to pay him. Get a player like Tarkowski in who's got proven Premier League experience. He'd easily be their best centre-back. A leader, great in the air as well. I think Tarkowski is pretty much the perfect centre-back option for
it depends what your system is.
This is interesting because you've gone Rangnick and like strayed away from like a Wilder or a Allardyce.
Yeah, but
and then you've gone Tarkowski.
James Tarkowski,
who's like a Steve Bruce centre-back.
No, I disagree. I think James Tarkowski's underrated.
No, I think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong.
I think he could easily play for a
Leicester. No, but we don't know. But we've never seen him play in a side where he's left on an island and has to defend in space. Like that's exactly what we saw at Leicester. Okay, so like Vestergaard. Praise to the skies last season. Plays in a slightly more expansive team, and only slightly more expansive. Like, still loads of protection around him. Looks completely out of place. Like, I like Tarkowski. I'm not saying he's going to be useless, but like, if you put Tarkowski in this Newcastle side now, he'd vastly improve them. You put him in a Rangnick team, and he might just be like, I have no idea where he's going to be.
Yeah, I think Tarkowski could play at a way higher level. Like, comfortably. So
you don't think
some
like
of those clubs that we're talking about,
his skill set is wed to Sean Dyche's way of playing? You think I
just think that he's excelled in that team because he's
a good player,
a good footballer.
On a free, it's not that much of a gamble. Sure, like if they can beat someone like Leicester to him, that's quite a statement, I think, and it's sensible.
I agree. I think, and it's also just the sort of thing that's not so rash that it's like getting Samuel Umtiti in, where you're like, could be a huge miss or win. Is going to be middling. It's not going to cost a lot. The biggest outlay is probably 110 grand on wages or whatever you're going to increase his wages.
It's interesting you started with Tarkowski because this is where there's loads of divergence, isn't there? Are they going to be quite prudent and go with, like a Rafa type manager and then pair that up with talent like Tarkowski, or are they going to be like Rangnick? We've got Rangnick. Let's go out and get the best two young centre halves like in the Eredivisie or something. Like, let's go get Yuri and Timber, who all the big clubs want. We could probably get him from Ajax for 30 to 40 million. Like he looks like a bit of a generational talent at the moment. would they be more expansive with their mindset? I feel like they might bet a little bit, not know which way to go and end up somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, maybe.
It is difficult.
It does depend who the manager is, doesn't it? It really does. But it's difficult. I just think he'd be a smart pickup, Tarkowski. I know that passing wise, if you looked at his numbers now, it's probably absolute mud. But that's because he's in a Burnley side. You know what I mean? I think if you put him in a better side, he'd perform at a better level.
That feels like a sensible evolution for Newcastle. It's just I don't know if they want to rip up the playbook. I feel like they would be more ambitious than that. But
I'd say a more ambitious signing. There may be something like an Axel Tuanzebe, who is going to become potentially leaving Manchester United, or available in the summer. He signed a 1-year contract extension, so his contract's up in 2023. He's on loan at Villa at the moment and playing in a back three, obviously, since Dean Smith's moved it up there. Young, very, very athletic, decent on the ball, and probably a smart signing in the sense that you're not going to lose a lot of money on him because he's not going to cost loads out of Man United. We're a terrible selling club.
I feel like he'll cost more than he should, though. As in, I think that, we saw Wolves almost got hold of Sven Botman from Lille in the summer. Lille having a pretty bad season. It feels like you might be able to go and do that. I wouldn't be surprised if there's not that much of a price difference between the two.
It's an amazing shout. But does Sven Botman go to Newcastle?
It looked like he was willing to go to Wolves, and I'm not convinced that Wolves in the summer were a much more attractive prospect.
Yeah.
Going from Lille, that part of France, not great in my opinion. Newcastle are a really big club. They've got a huge number of fans. They pay incredible wages relative to what Lille pay.
Yeah.
And if they've got a good manager in, I don't see why he wouldn't be attracted to it. But obviously, yeah. If it's Rangnick and you're Ralph Rangnick is our manager, I'm pretty certain he can convince Sven Botman to go.
It's funny you said Botman, because I actually tweeted him last night, or 17 hours ago.
You tweeted at him?
Yeah, at Sven Botman. Will you sign for Ragnick?
Come to Newcastle.
Yeah.
You will be paid in barrels of oil.
At Newcastle. I have gone for, okay, this is not in order. We're not progressing up the pitch now. It's become a little bit chaotic. So, Berardi.
Okay.
What do we think? Hard-working centre forward, can play on the wing.
I think, yeah.
They've already got Almiron, they've already got Sam
He would play off the wing, really, right?
Yeah, Sam Maximan, Wilson, Berardi's a very exciting front three.
Has had quite significant injuries, but it depends what the price is. I think if the price is good, you do it, right? Because he's a quality player.
This is our transfer committee now.
Okay.
This is the first wave of
We're
scouting.
like that guy who didn't know the name of the club.
I put that a 6 or a 7 out of 10.
A 6 or 7 out of 10. Joe Kinnear.
Yeah, who's just
who's the manager and director of football.
Who's just give us a kebab and I'll bring him in.
Right, I've got Kostic, who I think is probably one of the most underrated left wing backs come left wingers in the Bundesliga over the last 2 to 3 years.
Wilder.
I really don't think they need another left side. Ryan Fraser can't get a game. Jamal Lewis isn't playing properly.
It's really hard more left
wing back.
Are they playing 5-3-2? Are they going to play 4-3-3? Are they play 4-4-2?
But they do need creativity desperately, and he would give them that.
I was looking at Matt Ritchie, just thinking, okay, that needs upgrading right now. And I then thought of Rafa Guerreiro, who we've liked for a long time, right?
No way.
No. What is he doing leaving for Newcastle?
What's he now? 28, 29 now? This might be
I think he's younger than that. I think he's max 28. I reckon he's 27.
27.
He's always younger than you think he is, Rafa Guerreiro. He's
27 to 29.
He's like the counter Lallana.
I don't know. I just feel like if Dortmund were offered a sufficient amount of money, and if he was offered one big last payday, it is the sort of
Get to Newcastle.
It's the sort of smart move where I'd tug at that.
At
that thread.
How much would you pay though?
If Newcastle went, we'll give you 25 to 30
mil. No, they're laughing in your face. 25 mil for Rafa Guerreiro.
I don't think Dortmund would. I think they would.
I think they consider that.
I think they'd be confident. They'd be confident they could go and find a replacement for probably half that, and Dortmund's way of operating continues.
I also think Rafa Guerreiro's laughing in your face. Leaving consistent Champions League.
No, but that's because
football.
you're thinking of Newcastle right now rather than the project that Rangnick is going to sell.
He's playing consistent Champions League football.
It's Ralph. Big Ralph.
Come on, mate. He knows Ralph. Right, okay, we'll move on. That was
knows Ralph.
That was a controversial
Does he know
one.
Ralph? He's just he knows Ralph.
They've both been in Germany at some point.
They've got basically the same name.
Gerard Moreno.
You're too old.
Yeah, not the biggest fan either.
You've got Wilson.
Not the biggest fan. I know he had a hot season, but what is he, 33?
No, he's 29.
No way.
Yes.
I'm convinced he's been around for longer than maybe he is.
I would have guessed early 30s. Okay, Gerard Moreno's off the table. I thought maybe if we need goals in January, he might be a good go-to option. And Villarreal, again.
They're not going to let him go in January.
Yeah, but La Liga clubs been hit particularly hard by COVID. I think you would have probably had to pay 30 million 2-3 years ago, whereas now
again,
you
they're
could
going to
get
get
away
out.
with paying 20.
But they're going to get out of that Champions League group.
Yeah, because you lot
Yes.
right.
I think there'd be better loan options in January, honestly.
Kessie, his contract
I've
is
got
up at the end
Kessie
of the
written
season.
down here.
Not a fan.
Why aren't you a fan?
Kessie would be a
great.
good pickup for free next summer, mate.
He wants big old wages from AC. And Newcastle are going to specialise in big old
And I think
wouldn't
there's
do
going to be
it.
a lot better clubs than no offence to Newcastle, but not at that level yet. But I think that he's going to have offers from significant Champions League sides.
He's also just quite limited. I wouldn't do it.
I like him. I like him as a bit of a deep-lying playmaker, can be box-to-box at times.
But he doesn't play make or do anything you want from a deep line playmaker. He doesn't have good defensive numbers. He's not particularly good passer from deep. His main thing historically has been creativity and arriving in the box late. But last season, you strip out penalties. I think he got 11 goals in the league. I think 9 of them were penalties. He got 2 open play goals, and everyone's like, "What an amazing goal-scoring season!" I just don't see it. He's not a problem solver, and I think they're still at the stage where they need whoever comes in to be a serious problem solver, like a Swiss Army knife. It's not that I don't like him. I just think there are other clubs who you're we've got that role. He's going to fit into it. Newcastle, we've got no midfield.
Yeah,
Please fix it.
I've never liked him because I thought he could bring goals to the table. I think he can dictate the tempo of the game. I think he's very comfortable at picking the ball up from defence. I think that would probably help Newcastle evolve their system from a very conservative back five, having someone that's very comfortable picking it up from the centre halves. John Joe Shelby can be that guy, but then it's just a bunch of Hail Marys down the pitch, isn't it? I think
I had him written down though, but Pat has just convinced me, mate.
Well, you're easily convinced.
I just think he doesn't do any of that stuff at Milan. He doesn't dictate play at Milan.
I think he does.
He doesn't. It's Tonali or Benacer who does that. I don't know. I think Kessier's okay, cheers. But I just. Nah.
What's the next name? We've said no.
Right, okay. Where was I? Botman. And then I've gone Luis Alberto, I think, could be a bit of a not a smoking gun. An ace up my sleeve. 29. He's had, his numbers for Lazio.
You're just thinking of the film Smoking Aces.
That's a terrible movie.
It's so Josh Hartnett in it?
And Jeremy Piven or something.
It feels like a film.
The Assassins.
Yeah. But Luis Alberto has been a creative tour de force, mate, for the last 2 or 3 years. Obviously discarded by Liverpool way back when. Kind of rehabilitated his whole shtick in Serie A. And he's been great at the start of this season once more. And they lack severe creativity down the middle. His defensive numbers aren't great. We're going to need someone to complement that.
Donny van der Beek.
But if you went to Lazio, I feel like Lazio the sort of club where if at the minute you went here's 20-25 mil for Luis Alberto, they'd be like, yes, he's 29, absolutely, thanks. But okay,
he's better than Almiron.
Jesse Lingard.
No, hugely overpriced, not young enough.
Out of contract in the summer.
Don't care.
Out of contract in the summer.
He's going to ask for huge wages.
How much is too much for Jesse then? What would you offer him, Joe? You're on the negotiation
I think
table.
Jesse Lingard would be amazing
70K
for Newcastle.
a week.
Amazing for Newcastle.
Isn't he on 100k a week though? Yeah. And he's on a free. That's going to be so much money. I'd rather pay a fee. I wouldn't pay Jesse Lingard more than 70k a week.
He
when
would
I'm
be
Newcastle.
so good there.
No, he wouldn't.
In that part of that front three,
he'd be all right.
Under Ranić in the pressing system, he'd be superb.
That's a good point. He would be better there in the same way that Joe Linton would be better there. I think all those guys you'll get more of them out under Ranić, but I just don't. I think there's better to be had.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it.
What about trying to convince?
Why are you just trying to offload
Chelsea?
All Man United?
About trying to convince Chelsea to let Callum Hudson-Odoi come out on loan.
Yes, definitely do that in January. If you can do that.
Yeah, I just don't think they would they?
No, I don't think they would, but it would be
It would be a great opportunity, though.
Or convince them to sell Pulisic. They're going to sell one of them in the summer.
And it's going to be Ziyech.
And
No, it's not.
I don't know who it's going to be.
If you could loan Ziyech in January, that would be fun.
If you were we'll give you your money back for Pulisic, I think Marina would be like, we've got so many players.
Didn't they pay 60 million for Pulisic?
Yeah.
I can't see Newcastle doing 60 million.
I can and they will.
He does get injured a lot.
What about...
But I don't think
we don't like Ramsey then. Too many injuries.
I don't.
Big wages, big.
He's on
Again,
400 grand
but
a week.
historically very good at connecting the midfield to the attack. Like
That wage is a problem though.
Yeah, I mean he's on absolute peak.
And again, not a problem solver. Like not a problem solver.
He'll
press and he'll attack,
There's
but
a
he
few
won't
issues here
defend.
with
he
stuff
needs
we're
to
running
be put
into.
in a good team, doesn't he?
Yes,
to function.
There's a few issues we're running into here, and it seems to be the midfield.
Yeah.
What midfielders are available that would come in?
There are other sides where you look at it and you're like, right, okay, there's a defensive midfield, but there's no creativity, or there are a bunch of creative players, but there's no defensive output. I look at their midfield and I'm like, what does anyone do? Like, Shelby can pass and nothing else, and everybody else in it can do nothing. Like, literally nothing. Like, so it's just like, I'm sure they're all like, they're all doing their best, but it's like, they got Isaac Hayden from Arsenal's academy like years ago. It's like, he's rubbish.
He's playing in a back three now.
Like, yeah, exactly. There are all these
Isaac
guys.
Hayden plays in back three.
Yeah, on the
what
right
are
hand
these
side of
people
the back
doing?
three, I think.
Longstaff, not good at anything. Like, it's just, it's. I've got nothing against them. I just look at that team and I'm just like, you want clear roles here, right? You want to be like, that's our defender.
Chouameni would be a great target, but we're just not going to get him.
No, but I do think sometimes we're too harsh on teams' prospects of getting these players. We're like, no, he's being linked with like Real Madrid or whatever. He's going to go there. Well, Napoli are going to make it permanent for 15 million euros. But like, obviously, he'd have been amazing.
Yeah, class, Kel Surprise. Who? Okay.
What teams have got midfielders to offload in abundance?
I said Paredes.
Tanguy and
Paredes would
Ndombele.
be insane. Like
Paredes would be great for Newcastle.
He's played like 100 minutes in Ligue 1 this season. Like he has less minutes than Rafinha in central midfield. Like, and the worst thing you can level at Paredes is that you're not as good as Verratti, but you are pretty good. And he's 27. Like PSG need to offload players to keep balancing like financial fair play. Like we saw it this summer. They only sold Theo Bakker was class against Celtic, by the way. He's an absolute problem at left back. So they've got like good young players. Mitchell Bakker. Theo, who
You're thinking of Theo Baker, the YouTuber.
We sign him up. But yeah, I think there's probably some value to be had.
Do you know who's just sprung to mind?
In Paris as well.
I can see it already. Harry Winks. I can see wearing a Newcastle shirt.
But now you're doing this weird combination of them being like, right, okay, they're going to make a big splash in the market. They're going to go out for Ralph Rangnick, or they should do. And then you're like, no, but they're going to buy players who like you would have bought for Allardyce 10 years ago. Like, I mean, to me, a really obvious candidate here is like Aouar. Like, Lyon wanted to get rid of him last summer.
It's a big shout.
I think his contract's running down. Like, he genuinely... They could not get rid of him, and they were like, please take him. Rumours were they were even open to a loan, but he's such a... And his brother, who represents him, is such a pain in the arse. That everyone was like, absolutely not. Go and get him, because his numbers were lethal last season, and he is genuinely great at connecting midfield and attack. Like, he had huge XG output last season, basically playing as a kind of forward for the first time in his career.
A name.
Reignite the
Doesn't that
Newcastle
feel...
League and connection.
Yeah, I love that. I actually love that.
And look, these clubs do genuinely need to sell players. Get Aouar and then go for a defensive midfielder. And for a defensive midfielder, I think you can look at clubs like Hoffenheim, who have like Florian Grillitsch. We talked about him years ago. He's still 26. Good defensive numbers, good passer. Probably available for a reasonable fee.
What's Samassekou doing?
Samassekou, yeah, he's been injured quite a bit, but like Samassekou, great defensive numbers, like reasonably press resistant.
Oh my God,
like
Sangare! Let's bring him back to Sunday vibes. We've not mentioned Sangare in years.
Been playing under Schmidt, playing under Schmidt at PSV. Like truly, like these are guys who you can probably go and get. Like, and I think
really smart bits of business.
I don't think Aouar is. I think Aouar is the perfect nexus, right? Of like,
I agree.
Aouar
is right
dumb shit that a cash-rich club would do, and stuff that like stats nerds would be like, yeah.
It's got a bit of paille on it as well, hasn't it? That sort of let's sign like a troublesome rogue maverick sort of guy.
Tovan.
I also
he's got pure Tovan energy.
Gone to, I think it's to Mexico.
No, but it's got he has, but it's exactly the same thing where it's like let's get this troublemaker out of Ligue 1.
What about? I know that they're okay in wide positions. But like signing someone like Nodi Madueke as well, who like will return to British shores at some point. Like, and if he continues to put up the same numbers he has been at the start of the season for PSV over the course of a full campaign, he'll be like Tottenham will be knocking at their door, 20-25 mil.
We came out of their academy, didn't he?
Yeah, and Newcastle. Yeah, I think he was like made his under 18 debut for them when he was like 15 or something stupid.
That's I think that's a smart signing, but that's very clearly a summer one, right, rather than a January one.
Yes, not a January one. But like moving forward. Like there's a generation of Brits that have headed out to continental Europe who have one eye on a big money return to England after 2 years, right?
Aaron Hickey,
left back.
Aaron Hickey out of Bologna.
Legend.
How many left backs do they need? Newcastle.
Sign him
How
up,
many left
mate.
backs does Scotland need?
Listen.
Like Aaron Hickey is shortlisted for the Golden Boy Award. How ironic is it that or how stupid is it that
Robertson.
they produce another great young player and he's another left back? Like they've got nothing. Ridiculous team.
Okay, so we're saying Aouar is a definite shout. We really like that. Rangnick Aouar is the name we've agreed on so far.
And if there's one guy who's going to get him in line, it will be Rangnick, who's no, you're only allowed to
what
buy
about Big
a Kia seat.
Can we agree on Tarky? I think Tarkowski would be a great pick
for free? Yes, for free. Yeah, I think that's
in the summer for free. Cool.
Zero
Aouar for 10 million. Ballpark. Tarkowski for free.
Send Joe to
I
negotiate.
reckon you could probably get Aouar on loan with an obligation to buy it.
And then let's try and think of a forward then, because we've got a midfielder, we've got a defender.
I don't even know if I'd bother.
Nah, you got him.
No, if I get Aouar has basically played off the wing for a long time now. You can do that.
But Wilson's made of brittle bone.
I know, but I do think Joelinton and Alan Saint-Maximin are going to have much more end product if you've got Rangnick in. I think that you probably get some more production out of Fraser and stuff as well. But really, I just think that you need more creativity in the side. You've got. It doesn't matter if you go and get a really good striker if you've just got nobody creating. I mean, if you get Aouar,
they've got Willock in there.
If you get Aouar and
they've done a lot.
That's true.
They've done a nut on Willock, man.
What?
They're going to have to Willock, Aouar, and then a DM would be a nice little.
What do we want to play? 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1? I think Paredes for me is probably my best shout. I think
I just don't think they'll get him. I like it, but
I think that's their gutsy move in the summer. And come on, you offer any
Xhaka.
PSG are gagging to sell people. Gagging.
They are.
But are they gagging to sell Paredes?
Would you have Paredes or Aouar?
Yeah, because they want Pogba.
But they're not going to sell him in January though. Because they're not going to sell him in January though. I don't think PSG will sell anyone in January. They don't want to.
Who would you rather have, Aouar or Paredes?
But Mbappe's going off
Paredes,
the
I
books
think,
in the
brings more
summer.
to Newcastle, more balance to Newcastle. I also think the complexion of PSG's forward line, because Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe, it means that Herrera and Gay are going to get preference in that lineup, because just to balance things out. But I can see Paredes having started 6 league games at the end of the season.
But Paredes, I don't think is a game changer for Newcastle in the way that Aouar is. I think he's a great player, and I think you're right. You need him, but I think if you're trying to improve a side, the first thing you want to do is get attackers who are too good for that level. And Aouar is a guy like that. You get good attackers and they can drag a team up. I can't remember an example of a team that was dragged up the table by their defensive midfielder. As much as I love Paredes and as much as he's a very good passing central midfielder, you can't imagine being they got in Paredes and they soared from 17th up to 9th. Whereas Aouar, you'd be Aouar goes on a scoring streak and it happens. That's what Willock did last year.
But you've said, you were kind of willing to stick with Joelinton, willing to stick with Callum Wilson as their forward options. I think their front unit is okay, as is, good enough to keep them up in the league, certainly.
If they're fit.
If the ball can be progressed to them.
If they're fit, though.
Okay.
If Wilson's not fit, they are in huge.
I do like Aouar.
To be clear, I'm saying I wouldn't get. I'd choose probably not to get a forward or not to get a centre back, so I could get a DM and an attacking mid. Those to me are positions 1 and 2.
Okay. So we're saying, do you want to throw a DM name at us? We've already done a couple of them. Do we want to pick one?
Well, if Paredes is available, get Paredes. So you want
to do a midfield three of Paredes, Aouar, and Willock? Ooh. Feels like it's going to get sliced through.
I don't know. Willock does work hard, and he did last season. He's clocking up his defensive numbers were good.
Yeah, 4 to 5 tackles and interceptions at the moment. And to be fair,
they were rubbish at Arsenal.
That's one of the bravest midfields I've ever seen from a team facing relegation history.
Yeah, but I don't think they'll play that. I don't think they play a 4-3-3.
What do they play then?
Well, I don't know. Under Rangnick, I think he'll look at the squad and be
2-1-8.
he'll be we're playing five centre backs and some fullbacks.
4-2-3-1 and you had Shelvey and Paredes in there, and then a hard working 10
Why is Shelvey playing if Paredes is playing? I thought the whole point of Paredes is he benches Shelvey.
Campbell.
Because we're looking for a little bit more solidity at the base of midfield. Have they actually got, or move Isaac Hayden back into DM?
I do think Isaac Hayden's been playing as a centre back at times this season. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, he came to Arsenal's academy playing CB and DM. But I don't know. If I get Paredes, I'm Paredes is coming in because he's a better passer than Shelvey and a better defender.
I totally get that logic, but I'm just trying to combat the them being quite porous.
I kind of forgot they had Willock, which maybe changes my plans. I'm assuming we get Aouar very cheaply.
He's going to cost pittance, Aouar. They were trying to flog him for like 18 million in the summer, weren't they? There's another year left on his contract.
Yeah, so I mean, Paredes, but what you want then is you want a DM and a CM, and then my attacker, I'm saying, is Aouar. Like, so then I don't know, I want an attacking mid and I want a DM.
All right.
A CM and a DM, rather.
Should we wrap it up?
We need another midfielder, don't we? Come on, you pick us a central midfielder.
Are we not? Should we try and settle on a forward option then?
Well, like an actual striker.
Yeah, and then wrap it up.
I'm going to leave it with Aouar.
Because I do like Madueke as well. He is like Mr. Goals and assists this season for PSV.
Or one of the Stuttgart guys like Silas Mangatuka or like Sasa Kalajdzic.
I do think that a loan for Luka Jovic is not the worst either.
I think that's quite sensible.
Like he can't be as bad as he's been at Madrid.
Okay.
Like consistently, right? With some consistent minutes playing under Rangnick, I think he gets back to his best.
Newcastle fans would do their nuts if they got Jovic. Should we all like pick? We've spoke about a lot of players, and I feel like we're in agreement for the most part. But should we all pick like the 3 players then that we would sign out? The ones we discussed.
I would go Tarky, Aouar, Luka Jovic.
Is it me?
Yeah.
Paredes, Aouar. I mean, I guess Jovic, but like I'd really like a CM instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
Paredes for sure. Madueke maybe over Aouar, even though I do really like Aouar. And I think you're right. Another defensive option needs to be in there. No, I'm going to Kessie and 3.
Oh my God! What do you guys at home think of our selections? They seemed like absolute. So I'm just unconvinced.
That's an even braver midfield than Willock, Aouar, and Paredes. Like, what is it like?
Kessie,
you got Willock, Kessie, and Paredes.
Yeah.
You know, when the conversation started with like, do we go Allardyce or Rangnick? I thought the rest of this episode was going to be chaos. Like, where'd you go from here?
We're all over the place here, but I kind of hope you guys enjoyed the Newcastle discussion. Is there anything you've done this week, podcast wise?
Are we done?
Yeah.
Hard exit.
There's no point doing quick fires. We've spoken for about 10 hours.
Yeah.
It felt long.
How long have we been speaking for?
Long time. Yeah, but you would say that he's a Sunderland fan. What have we done on the podcast? It was just a little chat about like what's going on in the Premier League. We got Sonny Snelling on to talk about Tottenham.
Oh yeah, I watched
the state of Tottenham,
I watched
and what state they are.
Snelling was really positive about Tottenham in that episode.
Yeah, well,
he really was. What are you plugging?
And there's no one I'm on this week because I was ill for 3 days. So.
Okay, yeah, that's it then. Cheers.